Extroverts who ask others why are you so quiet, what kind of response are you looking for? I'm the quiet one and have asked my extrovert friend about this. For her, it's her anxiety telling her that I'm not taking because I'm mad at her. She is very uncomfortable with silence. We've both gotten better at being what the other needs in this regard. We have mutual friend who is also an introvert and we can sit and read for an afternoon and have a lovely time together while the extrovert anxiously eyes us lol. This is a spectacular answer to a question where I assumed there was no logical reason beyond making someone feel publicly called out. I feel like the answer to most difficult questions often comes down to people's insecurities and or traumas. I was raised by librarians. I like your accent. Where you from? I'm Liberian. Apostrophe. One of my favorite surgeons is very quiet. Story told about him by another surgeon when he was a resident. Resident kept trying to ask about his kids, his holidays, making chit chat. Surgeon says, I'm comfortable with uncomfortable silences. Apostrophe. End of conversation. One of my favorite coworkers was a guy that was equally comfortable sitting the next desk over in total silence for 4 to 6 hours at a time on the nights we worked together. It was so nice going in knowing I wouldn't have to spend 15 minutes every hour or two trying to make small talk. Sad day when he left. I hope it wasn't because I asked him if he wanted anything from the snack rack that one time. Best friend I ever had. We still never talk sometimes. Apostrophe. One of my now close friends is very quiet and introverted. For years, I thought he didn't like me at all. Eventually I figured out how to communicate with him. As someone who actually thinks before he speaks, which is surprisingly rare. Like you would ask a question and he wouldn't answer, so I would assume he was ignoring me out of dislike, when in all actuality, he thinks deeply about things before giving an opinion, so you may wait a few minutes in silence before he responds. Once I figured this out, we started to have a true friendship. Eventually I figured out how to communicate with him. It's called sending memes. Quite efficient language. That's my way of communication. I'm an extrovert who has recently taught himself to listen more than speak. I'm a contractor and I just knew that I had a tendency to dominate conversation and had to make the conscious effort to shut the duck up and listen to my customers. It has affected my entire life in a positive way. It's probably more profitable too. I imagine it is. It's something my wife brought up before I even met my first customer. I hate when they follow it up with a command to smile. Why are you quiet? Smile. Apostrophe. I used to work with a guy who would just randomly come up to me and say stuff like, are you okay? Why don't you ever smile? When I'd be in the middle of whatever task I was doing. I'm like, bro, I'm just trying to work. Leave me alone. Who walks around with a smile on their face 24/7, especially at work? Question mark? Question mark? And I barely ever worked the same shifts as this guy, so I didn't know him at all, which made it even more awkward. A witch stole the top 15 decibels of my voice. If you can retrieve them, I'll give you a reward. Apostrophe. Fuck, how though? Were you asleep? Quest givers don't have to explain shit. Better to remain silent and be thought a fool than open your mouth and remove all doubt. I always liked a wise man speaks because he has something to say. A fool speaks because he has to say something. Apostrophe. Why are you so loud? I'm so stealing this one. I don't know how effective that would be. Based on my personal experience. Years ago, I was on break at work. Just sitting at one of the break room tables. Minding my own business. Out of the blue, some girl at another table says from across the room, "Why are you so quiet?" I said, "Why do you talk so much?" Her response was simply, "Weirdo." Then she just got up and walked out of the room. Apparently my response was too confrontational. Even though I asked her essentially the same question, only with the roles reversed. My go-to response nowadays is to just shrug and say nothing. That's gotten a couple chuckles out of few people. I think there is a common misconception that introverts are rude and standoffish. It's hard for some people to be social, and that's perfectly okay. Maybe just a smile and a friendly "I don't know. That's just the way I should work." Based on the replies here, it seems that a lot of people think extroverts are just assholes as well. Based on a lot of the replies here, it seems like the extroverts are out doing something else, because this thread is mostly introverts explaining why they're quiet or the assumptions they make about extroverts. It's very few extroverts answering ops questions. I was in a long relationship with someone who could not stand silence and would never stop talking. This resulted in a complete breakdown of communication, because what was being said was always filler and never quality. I speak when there's something to say and expect to be listened to. Some people speak as a performance and don't understand why others don't perform the same way. When there's constant talking, information is not exchanged because talking just becomes constant empty noise. Someone said it like this: "You're talking but not saying anything," or something like that. You made a mistake asking Reddit this question. We're all introverts. Not many extroverts answering, so I'll put my 2 cents in. As an extrovert, I'm fairly easy to read in a group setting. You can tell when I'm having a good time, or tired, or even bored. It's fairly obvious when I'm not interested in the conversation, because I stop engaging. Introverts are harder to read, especially after a few hours of hanging out. They could have been interested at the beginning of the night, but now it's been 4 hours and they're starting to wane. Or they're not. Who knows? I like to check in to make sure they're okay. I try not to use "why are you so quiet?" as a question, but it does come out of my mouth sometimes as a "why are you so quiet at the moment?" Most of the time I try to ask something along the lines of like, "We're not boring you, are we?" And yes, my introverted friends have answered, "I'm thinking about heading home. My energy's spent," or "This conversation is boring. I'm waiting till you all finish," while browsing on their phones. As an extrovert, browsing on my phone means I'm straight up not having a good time. However, I really only do this in group setting of like 10 or more people, since at that point it's easy for some introverts to get lost in the shuffle. But honestly, I know some talkative introverts. They are relatively talkative for a few hours, then have to leave because they are drained. I don't know many introverts who sit in a corner and just stare at everyone. Some do, but that because they are shy or anxious, not because they are introverted. But the misconceptions about extroverts online is insane. I'm an extrovert who can go all night and straight into day. If there's a party going on, I'm usually one of the last to leave and love talking to people. I can talk one-on-one with someone for hours. I've been on the phone with a friend 10 hours before, and it's happened multiple times. However, I also love being alone. I find it relaxing to sit in silence and read or scroll Reddit. I love playing single player games and hate multiplayer ones. The quarantining didn't bother me one bit, even though I only saw friends/family a few times this year. I can be loud in certain situations, but people make fun of me for being derriere because my voice is so monotone most of the time. And I don't hate introverts. They just experience the world differently than I do. Just trying to make sure we didn't do something to offend, cause fellow extroverts get quiet when they're mad/frustrated. A lot of people ask me, "Why don't you just talk to people? What could go wrong?" And I guess that's true, but I'm always afraid in going to do something weird and duck up and look really stupid, and it happens a lot to be, so that's why for me. Please don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed watching this video. Leave your thoughts in the comments below.